As champions of the arts, we understand the importance of accessibility and connection. But how do we make art not just seen, but felt, especially by those who may feel it's out of reach? Imagine reshaping perceptions and bringing art into the lives of first-time engagers, fostering connections that could redefine how communities engage with creativity. This is more than just opening doors. It's about changing the narrative around who art is for. Stay tuned. Before we begin today's episode, I want to introduce you to our sponsor, the Institute for Arts Impact. If you're an arts leader striving to increase relevance, resources, and revenue, you understand the challenge of articulating your value in a way that resonates deeply with stakeholders. I'm thrilled to share news about the Institute's upcoming Collaborative Arts Impact Initiative launching this fall. This groundbreaking pilot project is set to equip nonprofit arts organizations with cutting-edge customer impact management software, enabling them to measure and communicate the public value of the arts in real time. Imagine providing your funders and stakeholders with evidence-based advocacy, highlighting your work's social and economic impact using new language for return on art, or ROA. This initiative isn't just progress, it's a revolution in demonstrating art's public value. Elevating the arts through measurable outcomes is not just part of the Institute's mission, it's what drives them. If you're ready to be at the forefront of tracking your ROA, reach out to info@instituteforartsimpact.com to learn more. And now, let's get back to Arts Redefined. Hey there, it's Angela. As leaders in the creative sector, how do we break down barriers and make art accessible to everyone? If you've ever wondered how to connect with first-time art engagers or support local galleries meaningfully, you won't want to miss this episode. Today, I'm thrilled to speak with Sarah Gormley, the inspiring owner of Sarah Gormley Gallery and the new author of The Order of Things, a memoir about chasing joy. Sarah shares her gallery opening journey, challenges, and joy in creating spaces that stir emotions and foster human connection. We'll dive into the misconceptions surrounding art accessibility and explore how we can redefine what it means to engage with art. Whether in academia, as an arts patron, or a creative sector leader, this conversation will challenge you to rethink how we bring art into people's lives. Get inspired by Sarah's story and her vision for a more inclusive art world. So I'm just going to jump right in, Sarah. I am so excited to see you. I'll be offended if you don't drop a few F-bombs during this conversation.
It's such a challenge. It really is, and it's bad. And
no, I mean, hey, 34 of those were edited out of your book, which was pretty cool that you even counted. Okay, so your book, The Order of Things, comes out September
10th is the publication date, yes.
So I was just honored that you gave me an early copy to read, and I just want to tell you that you got me on page 183.
Hold on.
You got me, Sarah. I was not expecting what I read at all. I read it in 2 days. I could have done it in a day, but family obligations came in the way. I actually bailed on a meeting.
Oh.
Because and then I was up at like 6 a.m., couldn't wait to finish. You had a lot in there, the style of the writing, the format of the chapters. I lost track of time. So, we have a kindred spirit in both having a gallery and neither, studying or majoring in art in college. And so I get that underlying need, I don't know what the word is, to have people know of your previous life, that, Martha Stewart, Adobe, San Francisco, New York, Chicago. And from my perspective, and I'm realizing now that how long are we into this and I haven't even let you talk and say anything.
I love it. I'll just listen.
you just, from my perspective, you appeared out of nowhere and you just like hit the ground running.
Well, thank you. I mean, that means the world to me. And, I'm a crier. It is, obviously I wrote the book hoping that it would resonate with some people, 2 people, 4 people, 400,000 people. I don't know. And it's fairly overwhelming to have conversations now that I'd say about 75, 80 people have read it. And hearing the responses and feeling like it's moving people. It's the closest I've come to creating art. And so the experience of creating something in private or with a little help from a writing teacher here, someone reviewing the essay, artists have people come in or professors give them a critique. That is one part of the process, but putting it out into the world is an entirely different experience. So that's something I'm adjusting to. But thank you for being so generous and for reading it.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for giving me an early copy. So you said that obviously, yes, you hope it resonates with people, I would imagine, when you think about writing, but how much of it was that? How much of it was it for yourself? I mean, now that you've done it.
A bunch of it was for myself. 2 versions of myself. One was, I honestly, let's say I opened the gallery in 2019, 2020, I kind of stepped back and like, what in the fuck is happening? I live in Columbus, Ohio. I own an art gallery. I'm madly in love with this man named Camillus. And I am so filled with joy spontaneously that I start crying at gas stations. What happened? Right? Like I wanted to try to piece it together for myself. And then the author's note, which I wrote last, I was writing it from sort of that 29-year-old version of myself, who, as you know, I was really struggling emotionally. And I kept reading things, hoping to find a book that would give me hope. And so, I kind of wrote it for those 2 versions of myself. And also, I'm a writer. I want the craft to be good. So there are several ways into it, the why, I'd say.
How long had it been brewing inside you to do a book? Or first, that question, how long?
Gosh, I started writing poetry and some first-person essays. Poetry first as in elementary school, junior high, high school. Did some writing in college and workshops. So, I guess everybody always has this little idea, oh, maybe I'll write a book one day, but I didn't ever think I had a story interesting enough to tell. And fiction has never been my thing. And then I started taking some writing classes because I had the freedom when I was no longer in a corporate role, working 70 to 80 hours a week, or whatever it was. And so I started doing some writing classes with a wonderful writing instructor named Ruthie Ackerman, who's in New York City, and spent a few months with her in these workshops. And then I remember Camillus and I were at Nita's on High, the Thai restaurant, on August, I don't remember the day, it was August of 2020, and I were having lunch, and I said, I think I'm going to write a book. And he said, well, then you probably will. So yeah, I don't it's been a process, but it's been 4 years basically from when I decided and publication date.
So are you still with Camillus? I need to ask. Okay.
For now. He might get so sick of this book thing. And I mean, he knew. My brother, sister, Camillus all gave me permission, and they read the first draft. And Camillus was the first person to read the final in a book form. He sat and read it in one sitting. So, they've all been so supportive. I only changed a couple of names in the book.
But so Grandma Cameron bought you your first painting when you were graduating from DePaul. And tell me, did art always speak to you growing up? What role did art play in your life on the farm?
Really, visual art, not so much. I mean, Zanesville has a wonderful museum, take school trips to Columbus Museum of Art, and so I'd say it was just sort of a normal kids' exposure to art. My parents certainly weren't collectors, and I don't know. I remember going to the senior art show, and
When you were in college?
in college, my senior
Okay.
college, and my classmate Matt Wentz had these two paintings, a diptych, and I just was blown away. And so when I don't know what, it's the same reaction I still have to certain pieces of art. I really wanted it. And my grandmother had asked me what I wanted for a graduation gift. And I told her, oh, there's this painting. And I knew in the moment that something magical happened, right? He created something. I had this emotional connection to the painting so much that I wanted to own it. I had no money, but my grandmother bought it for me. So I remember thinking, gosh, that's something pretty magical. If you can get to be around that, but it never occurred to me to try to pursue it in any career way. I remember after the Matt Wentz painting, then I moved to Chicago, and it just became like a hobby. I still don't think of myself as a collector.
Right.
My house is filled with art. And so it was something that I did. And that I remember once I had a few pieces that I had this frame, Hockney poster. It's like, I guess it's time to get rid of the posters, right? I think
Yeah.
when you have the original art, the posters seem a little, not so much. And so then even into my early 40s, people would come to my apartment and sort of be like, oh my God, how do you have so much art? In my head, I was like, well, how do you know?
Right.
It wasn't, and listen, I was buying what I could afford. One of my favorite pieces I bought the first week I was in New York, I think it was $200. It's called Yankee Stadium. It's a little oil painting. So anyway, it was such a source of joy in my own life that I thought, finally, after a lot of work and all the stuff that happens in the book, it's like, oh, I can do this. Well, I don't know. It's 5 years. We'll see.
Yeah. So that's, again, it's very similar. I guess when I started getting in, quote, trouble with art in buying, I was 26, 27, went to a gallery that you are well aware of, Duff Lindsay Outsider Art Gallery. I used to work with Duff when I was in television and saw this piece, and I loved it. And it was $600. My rent at the time was $525 a month. And I know that, see, you want someone like me in your gallery, right? Like, and I remember looking at it, and Duff said to me, how much can you afford to pay a month? And I was like, what? And he said, well, yeah, and I'm like layaway? Layaway was my favorite thing. So I paid him, I wrote a $200 check. And in 3 months, I had my painting, and it's a Thornton Dial. If you look up Thornton Dial, outsider artist from Alabama, he had a retrospective. And again, I had no idea who outsider art, what it was. I was just drawn to this piece. But anyway, Thornton Dial ended up having an amazing career, and I still have it, and I love it. And it's my favorite piece after all these years.
And that's what I get so excited about. It's like I walk around my house, and every piece, there's the story going on in the painting or the photograph, and then there's the story that grows around it as part of your life. And every time I look at something, I kind of know where I was at the time, how I was feeling, and I just think it's magic. So
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about when the art gallery idea came. So you came back, your mother was sick, and again, thank you for sharing such a touching and an emotional story. Uh, when did the gallery enter your mind?
I feel like I've told you this story, but it's just such a good Columbus story. So, I decided to not work for a full year. So the year of 2018, I forced myself because my brain, it's almost like I had to get the corporate stuff off of me. I was dreaming about work, thinking about work, and I had to like get through it. Mom passed us away. It's not a surprise, no spoiler alert. Um, but I moved to Columbus in January of 19, and I lived in the short north in a wood company's building. And I love this part. They threw a cocktail party in the building for the residents. And I was laughing. I was like, we've already signed the leases. Like, no one would do this in fucking New York or San Francisco. Like, you don't need to be nice to us. We're already here.
We're already committed.
And yeah, and in fact, it was Tyler, who's now the president. Someone was asking me about what I was doing or not. And it was sort of like, oh, I'm doing a little bit of marketing consulting, but I'm really thinking about opening a pop-up gallery. And I had been thinking about it probably since I lived in Chicago after college. It always is this sort of wild, harebrained idea that I needed to get out of my system. So let's say this cocktail party is in, I think it was February of 19. I get an email from Tyler. I heard you might be interested in opening a pop-up gallery. We have a space. Like, in what world? I'm like, okay. So I go out the front of the building, turn right, walk down to the space next to Duff. It's like, it's great. He was like, it's cheap. When do you think you might open? It's February. And I said, oh, May or June? Based on, I have nothing except an idea. And he said, how about April? I said, okay. I mean, it's unbelievable. And
So but describe to me though, so you go back to when you're in college and you said it was like this fleeting or this, back in the mind and get it out of your system. What was that? Like, what were you even thinking at that point?
Well, it seemed I didn't think or understand that I could make a living, that I could make enough money and be successful financially to do it. And so in 2019, I found myself in a position where I had some of the financial means to take a risk. And I'm very honest about that, right? I'd worked really hard in big corporate America. And so it was a little bit more of the if not now, when. And I also, which is in the book, had done enough emotional work through therapy to have a much higher belief in myself, right? Belief in that I could do things, belief that I was worthy enough to pursue things that I love.
Was it the
titles and paychecks and salaries?
Right.
Part of it. It's pretty messy. And so I thought, here I am. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, which frankly shocked me. And let's try this thing. So in February, I signed a lease. And I thought, well, I have a little pop-up gallery. I better have a website and a logo. I better find an artist who's willing to try this. And there was a young woman who worked for me when I was in New York. And I had been following her on Instagram and seeing these incredible black and white street photos she did in Manhattan. I called her up and said, hey, it's Sarah. How would you like to have your first solo show in Columbus, Ohio in April? And she said, sure. I mean, it just, and so the next thing I know, I have a website and an opening and a logo. And I thought, well, this isn't a 3-month pop-up experiment. I'm at least enough of a businesswoman to know I have to try for a year. So it grew from that. And I try to be honest about that. It's a little bit embarrassing because it was like the least planful thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, I'm a pretty rigid type A And it was like, fuck it, try it.
Right.
And so
And
here,
sometimes,
10 years later.
yeah, and I think you would say, I'm guessing because I know from my own experience, sometimes those least thought out, planned occurrences are the most meaningful or the most personal, right? I always say that, the most vulnerable thing that I've ever done in my life was open a gallery. I never even, and so that's where my journey ended up being a 6.5, 7 year journey of really approaching it from my journalistic background and really wanting to understand the artists and their work and why they do what they do, giving them a platform to have a voice, which then for me was so informative for what I do now, which is advocate every day for the arts. So I look back, as I'm sure you do, and see the through line. You talked about the through line in the book, right? But you have a through line through your life that one thing leads to the other, and it just happens to work out the way it's supposed to, right?
Well, or not. And if it does,
Or not.
take your lesson and move along. I think,
Yeah, but don't you also think that when something doesn't work out, that's supposed to happen that way?
yes. I'm being nitpicky because sometimes I think that it was meant to be. It's just a sort of a something we tell ourselves. I don't know, but yes, I don't know that everything happens for a reason. I think how you respond to things that happen is what matters, right?
Yes.
From it, were we kind to ourselves? Were we as generous as we could be with other people? So, and I was very unkind to myself for very long. And I kept taking jobs that were not, I was so mixed up that I really believed my goal was to be a chief marketing officer. So I became a chief marketing officer. And guess what? It didn't make me feel good about myself. It's not the job's job to make you feel good about yourself, right? So it's like all of those things for me were tied into the career decisions. And it wasn't until I was in a better space that I was able to create opportunities for myself. I mean, if you had told me at age 40 that I would be sitting here at age 52 and my days consist of talking to artists, talking to collectors, and writing a book, I've been like, go fuck yourself. Not a chance, right? But I don't know. Here I am for now. It's kind of nuts, but I feel very, very lucky.
Digressing a minute, going back to you personally, because you're very open about this in the book, which is, have you figured out, and I don't even know if there is an answer.
No.
Why?
No.
What was why you were so hard on yourself? Why we are so hard on ourselves?
Well, that's one thing that is not surprising and still upsetting to me is every woman who has read this book, you have not said this yet, was like, me too. Me too. Every day. So hard on myself. So hard on myself. And I'm like, what in the hell? Like, it's not necessary. And I think we confuse the negativity and the voice. I call it the voice on the tape, the loop. And I had convinced myself that that's what was driving me. And it was taking up so much energy. So the why of it, listen, I was just a kid who looked around and perceived what I thought my parents in the world wanted, which are not shockers, smart, skinny, and successful. So off I went. And it appeared that those things were easy for me. And what I know now is that I was so busy becoming that version of what I thought the world wanted that I don't think you have to create room for your real self to come out. And so it makes me sad that I think of so many of us, especially women, going through that. And it's different degrees but it took me until age 40 to really be ready to try to get help.
I think what you are expressing and what so many are feeling when I think back in time when I was in my 20s and you hear about women in their 40s or 50s saying, I'm finally coming into my own. I'm the youngest of 7, so my story is a little different in that I always felt loved, but I didn't always feel seen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it wasn't, I don't remember thinking I'm not worthy, because I was too, reflecting on this as I was reading your book and trying to compare, like, did I feel that way? It's not that I didn't feel I wasn't worthy. I just felt as if nobody cared, or I didn't know where I fit in or belonged.
Right.
But I do think that there's something to coming of age when you're 40, 50, having that confidence to just go for something. And if it doesn't work, oh, well, or if it does, fantastic. Right. There's
My identity isn't attached to it. I mean, it is. My name is on it. The name is on the gallery. But if one of those things, quote unquote, fails, it's not me. And it's taken this long. I think I say this in the book. I can't remember now. But I didn't know who to be if I didn't have a big title and a big brand. And my friends were like, newsflash, your stupid big jobs are our least favorite thing about you. All you do is bitch about it. You're always late. You're always on a call. You miss trips. I mean, so it was a big, hard job of untangling from it.
Shifting to the gallery, because my world is nonprofit arts, and I had a gallery as well. I'm curious your opinion or misconceptions that people have about galleries, and your thought in the ecosystem of the arts as it relates to nonprofit versus for-profit and all of that. Your opinion?
You probably have to repeat the second.
I will. So misconceptions about what are misconceptions?
I think there continues to be wild misperceptions about the accessibility of original art, fine art, contemporary art, whatever you want to call it. I think that if you did a random survey, and this is another thing, we don't have enough data, right? Which I would love to get GCAC to do a proper survey annually around Columbus. I'd say 95%, if you just did a proper survey, would say that they can't afford to buy original art. Right? I think most people immediately think when you talk about art, you're talking about blue chip art, auction house art, museum quality art, big New York City, San Francisco, LA galleries. And that world exists, but it's a very small percentage of the art buying world that gets the most visibility on a national and global level. So I've tried as hard as I can, and I haven't done enough, truly, to talk about making art accessible to first-time buyers, and that art can be a source of joy for everyone. I talk about having an array of mediums and price points. I track first-time buyers because I love when first-time buyers come in. Is that answering your question?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And, I need to hustle more. I need to have little seminars and workshops in the gallery specifically for first-time buyers, and take them around to other galleries in Columbus and let them know, that it's for them. Anyway, that's my frustration, because my number one goal when I opened the gallery was to reach that audience. And I specifically choose art and artists for my roster to have that array of price points. I have a $250 collage by Michelle Bondurant, which is stunning. It's ginkgo leaves. And I have a $30,000 bronze bench by Alan Cuttrell. Those two buyers are not probably the same buyers. But I have a stunning gallery on High Street. And when you walk in, I don't care who you are, you're treated the same way. And so that's really important to me. Does that answer your question?
It does. But what do you?
Conversation. It's a big topic.
Yeah, it is. And I love having this conversation with you because your opinion matters. So misconceptions about galleries to other businesses, or, you said the word hobby earlier, and that's something that I felt that I had to combat when I started was this isn't a hobby. I'm taking this very seriously, and
Okay.
on and on and on. Um, do you feel taken seriously as a small business owner?
I guess yes, because I've never thought about it. So
Okay.
I don't. If I didn't, I would be talking about it. I've never in 5 years felt that I wasn't taken seriously. Um, I will say that the ethos of the gallery is not a serious one intentionally. It's joyful, right? There's so much heaviness in the world today that I believe that art can be, I call it a source of joy. And so it can also be a source of serious conversation and serious thought starters and responses to what's going on in the world, of course. But the interactions around galleries and in galleries, I'm at, I have zero tolerance for pretense. I have zero tolerance for assholes. So if some muckety muck walks in and thinks he or she knows more about art than me and is collecting important art, they're not my clients. I could give a fuck, right? So that's pretty blunt, but and that's why, honestly, if I was really trying to make money, I would become a private consultant and spend my time flying to Miami, New York, LA, doing the thing. And it's just not that interesting to me. I want to sell art to real people.
How much does location matter
In terms of
sales? So I've noticed that you've launched your website and you did I thought, very clever social media campaign where I believe I saw where you were discounting. If you bought this online, we're going to discount. I thought that was super clever, Chief Marketing Officer. And
I tell you about all the big sales that came rolling in.
And so I love that approach that you think outside the box. Yeah, is it translating? Do you get feedback? It's not an easy business, I know.
It is such a challenging business. And I've had lots of different conversations around the same topic. And I don't have the answers. If it was an easier business, there would be more art galleries. I know that I have to have more buyers. I know that I cannot be successful financially if I rely entirely on a Columbus market. So, is it working perfectly? Not yet, but it's very much word of mouth. And because I've lived in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, I have a posse of people in Cleveland. That's where the SGG machine is alive. Yeah, I need to hustle more. And the other thing that I feel like you should probably cut me off. This is maybe conversation over wine, but there tends to be some conversation, and I was stuck on this for a while. How do we get Columbus to be more supportive of local galleries? And I don't know that the answer is going to be solved by a sort of a collective, we need to get together and do something really creative, but we're not going to bully people into buying art. Right? We're not going to say, you better pay attention and support us, right? Like, no one responds to that.
Right.
So I think it goes back to trying things, testing things, and hustle. I don't know. Again, I also don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of what my ideas right now.
Yeah.
And also, honestly, right now, I don't think there are a ton of people buying art. And I've talked to other gallerists, and it might be the election year thing, economy fears thing, whatever it is. I still have to pay my rent, so find a way around. I don't know.
Yes, I Nope, I hear you. And I hope that we can drive some people, if not to the brick and mortar, at least to your website, and for sure to their favorite bookstore in September when your book comes out, because it's a wonderful, wonderful book. So to round out this conversation, again, I could go on forever. Two quick questions to end this. One, how do you define art? As you know, my podcast is Arts Redefined. I'm on a mission to revolutionize how we invest in the arts, and I think it begins with a renaissance of relevance. If we can show art's relevance in all aspects of industry and community, that I think naturally resources and revenue will follow. We need to consider the sustainability and capacity of arts and the creative sector. So how do you define art?
I wish you had told me sooner what the question was going to be so I could sound smarter. The only thing I keep coming back to right now is human connection, right? There's so much in terms of business and commerce and that's transaction, right? I think art is a place where the medium is about human connection, in a positive way. It's about emotional stirring, right? And yeah.
No, I think
It's not perfect. I'll think about it and send you a message, but that the essence of art is human connection.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. What color do you love the most?
Black.
I was going to say that. No, are you kidding me?
No. I wish I should zip you around my house. I wear black all the time because I'm lazy. But
you grew up in a black farmhouse, and in the book, you talk about your house painted black. Yes, that was so. I was wondering if it was black because of your house, because you mentioned it several times in the book. Yes, black. That's not bad. It's
going to say to excuse myself a little bit. It's also
yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
My home used to be very minimal. Like my apartment in Chelsea was very kind of sleek and white and gray. And when I moved to San Francisco, I introduced sort of color and it's a little more playful. So it's not all black.
So I will have in the show notes all the information on you, the gallery, where you can pre-order your book. So this conversation will come out before your book is out to help drive pre-orders. So get on it, people. Support Sarah and her gallery. Yeah. And
that's pre-orders and reviews. That's it. That's what drives a successful launch. So I'm like,
yeah, I get it. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You are someone who people should follow and get to know through the book. And again, thanks for your gift of story. I think it's really going to be impactful to a lot of people.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind and generous. Thank you for having me on, and congratulations on launching this book. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.